Hi, my name is Katherine Webster, and I did an article review on why are CEOs under 50 rare in the S&P 500. So, just a quick summary to get us started. The S&P 500 is widely regarded as the best single gauge of large cap US equities. There is over 9.9 trillion US dollars indexed or benchmarked to the index, with indexed assets comprising approximately 3.5 US dollars of this total, and that's in trillions. The index includes 500 leading companies and covers approximately 80% of available market capitalization.
So
And
this
this
is really
comes
a big
straight
thing.
from the S&P 500 website.
This is a big deal. So the population we're looking at represents most of American business
Yeah,
as
and it's
based on
huge.
market cap. Okay.
And I just added in a quick little chart up here just to show the general trend of the S&P 500 in the top right corner.
Okay.
And just to continue with the summary, the S&P 500 tracks the market capitalization of the companies in its index. Market cap is the total value of all shares of stock a company has issued. It's calculated by multiplying the number of shares issued by the stock price. The S&P 500 has more large cap stocks than the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The Dow tracks the share price of 30 companies that best represent their companies, whereas the makeup of the S&P 500 industries reflects that of the entire economy. And I put another little chart up in the top right to show the median salary of the S&P 500 CEOs. I think that's quite interesting to see how high they really are.
And they've grown by, it looks like 13% over the past 5
Oh
years.
yeah, and this chart goes up to 2015, so I'm sure they're
Okay.
much higher by
Oh,
now.
even more. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, compared to the average worker, that's probably a disproportionate hourly rate.
Oh yeah. So a quick example of a younger executive is Mauricio Gutierrez. He's the chief executive of the power generation company NRG Energy. He's only 48 years old, which is comparatively young to most of the chief executives in the S&P 500s. So really the question I'm going to go through today is why are they over 50?
Okay.
A Wall Street Journal analysis of the S&P 500 companies that filed corporate proxy statements by May 1st shows that 28 of 493 CEOs, 6% are under 50 years old. Now that's a crazy minority that we need some explaining.
Yeah, for sure.
So the median age shown by data from MyLodgeIQ shows that the median age of the chief executive in the S&P 500 is 58 years old. Again, that's pretty old for being a CEO.
Whoa.
And you can see here, these are the 5 oldest CEOs in the S&P 500, and some of them are over 80 years old. These people are from the GI generation, which is a long call from the newest adult, which are the Generation X and Y. And that's really who needs the representation and the thought about in today's business.
Why do you think they keep working till 80? Do you ever see yourself working till 80?
I'm honestly not. I couldn't imagine working till 80, but then again, my boss right now is 73 years old and still kicking.
Okay. But when do you think you'd get tired after a while and say, I've worked
Yeah,
hard? And these guys have a stressful life. I
yeah.
wouldn't expect this is easy.
Yeah, no, maybe they just don't
Love
like
it.
to be bored. Which, I can't blame them. I wouldn't want to retire and have nothing to do. So maybe if this is their true calling, this is really what they like to do, then hey, that's what they're going to do for the rest of their life. This is their retirement.
Okay. I guess we all have different dreams for retirement then.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can't say I would want to do this for my retirement. So the real question that I want to get down to is why are the older CEOs being hired and the younger ones not? And I really think that it comes down to experience and the already biased opinions of the CEOs that are being replaced. So mostly the directors, like the board directors of already established companies, they're already older.
Okay.
So if they see candidates that are most like them, they're most likely going to hire them.
Yeah. So you hit upon that. People tend to hire people who are like them.
Exactly, exactly. And when you see an older CEO versus a newer CEO who's younger, you're going to automatically assume, without even seeing their resume, you're going to assume that older CEO has had more experience just because they've lived longer.
Sure.
It may not be true, but it's just
Hmm.
the automatic kind of tendency that our
Hmm.
brains tend to have.
Yeah.
All right. So some prime examples that I'm going to introduce you to today are Mauricio Gutierrez, Adina Friedman, Brian Niccol, Matt Maddox, James Cannon, Mark Zuckerberg, and Conor Flynn. These are some quote-unquote young S&P 500 CEOs, and when I say young, that means under 50 years old.
Okay.
So Mauricio Gutierrez is the president and CEO of NRG. He joined in 2004 and helped build the company up from a regional to a national business. And prior to becoming president and CEO, he held the position of chief operating officer. And during his tenure as chief operating officer, he led NRG's engineering and construction activities related to new generation and repowering projects. And he's only 47 years old, which is, again, considered young in
Hmm.
CEO terms.
Yeah. When you actually get to in next week's module, you actually have a piece called organizational design. And I think
Mhm.
you'll see how somebody like this, when you see the org chart stuff we discussed, you'll see how some of these things fit together. And
Yeah.
COOs often become CEOs.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, going through all these people, I see that a lot. That seems to be a trend that I'm seeing. The
Yeah.
CEO.
That they have a history with the company and have
Mm-hmm.
moved through the ranks.
Yeah. So up next is Adina Friedman. She assumed the role of President and Chief Executive Officer of NASDAQ in 2017, and she's also a member of the Board of Directors. She has more than 20 years of industry experience and is credited with significant contributions that shaped NASDAQ's strategic transformation to a leading global exchange and technology solutions company with operations on 6 continents. And again, she's under 50, but just barely 49 years old. Next is Brian Niccol. He is the CEO of Chipotle Mexican Grill, and he's responsible for driving the overall brand strategy and performance of over 2,400 restaurants in North America and Europe. And this is just kind of off of his biography, off of his LinkedIn profile. It says he's passionate about Chipotle's purpose of cultivating a better world and bringing a truly unique dining experience to customers.
Do you
And
know if is he one of the founders?
he is not.
Okay.
No, he came from a different company before this.
Okay.
Um, I do not remember exactly what company it was, but I know he came from other food brands. So he
Okay.
seems to have a trend of managing food companies.
Okay.
Niccol takes pride in leading a purpose-driven brand, offering extraordinary ingredients that are not only fresh, but that are raised responsibly with respect for the animals, land, and people who produce them. He is 45 years old. Next is Matt Maddox. Mr. Maddox has served as the company's chief executive officer since 2018, and that's at Wynn Resorts, and the president from 2013 to May 2019.
So he was 37 when he took over as president. So he was pretty young as a president.
Yeah. So he started out, like I had put on the 5 oldest CEOs. You'll
Mm-hmm.
notice some of them started out really young and have continued until they were almost 80 years old. But
Mm-hmm.
the majority of them started after they were 60 years old. So it's
Hmm.
interesting to see who's starting out early and who's starting out late. And I wonder if there's any difference, really.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, right now I'm putting their current age, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, obviously these are old, so they've definitely been there for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's only 43 years old.
Yeah. Hmm.
Next is James Cannon. He's the president, chief executive officer, and director of FLIR since 2017. Previously, he worked at Stanley Black & Decker and Stanley Security, North America and Emerging Markets since 2004. And between 1989 and 1999, Mr. Cannon served in the U.S. Army in various locations around the world as an infantryman and armor officer, including Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm in Iraq, where he was awarded the Combat Infantryman's Badge. And he is 48 years old. I always have to get into the veterans stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And probably the most popular one, Mark Zuckerberg. Mark is an American technology entrepreneur and philanthropist. He is most known for co-founding and leading Facebook as its chairman and chief executive officer. He
Now
also,
he was a founder, so he's sort of like he's built the company.
yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
And he also co-founded and is a board member of the solar sail spacecraft development project Breakthrough Starshot.
Okay.
Since 2010, Time magazine has named Zuckerberg among the 100 wealthiest and most influential people in the world as a part of its Person of the Year award. And in 2016, he was ranked 10th on Forbes' list of the world's most powerful people. And today he is 35 years old. So he is
Wow.
the youngest out of all of them.
Very young.
And again, he's been doing this for quite some time.
Hmm.
Last but not least is Conor Flynn. He's the CEO of Kimco since January 2016. He joined the company in 2003 as an asset manager and kind of worked his way up through senior leadership roles, including president, chief operating officer, chief investment officer, and president. He has a bachelor's from Yale and a master's in real estate development from Columbia. And he's a licensed real estate broker in California and a member of all sorts of different real estate committees and things. And he is 38 years old. All right. About 7% of CEOs were younger than 50 at the end of 2018, but in 2009, it was 16%. So it's actually going down,
Hmm.
which is
Do you think some
really
of the people
funny.
that were under 50 in 2009 are still there, and that's what's they
Yeah,
haven't
maybe
retired?
they've aged out. They've
Okay.
just turned over 50 years old. Yeah, that's probably what it is. I feel like all people that did start early in the CEO position, they've just stayed there. And
Okay.
they just haven't been replaced with the younger CEOs yet. I'm hoping that sort of starts soon so that we young people can get some representation.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to Mr. Gutierrez, he says if you have a very homogeneous group on the board of directors, you can't fault them for picking somebody who looks and thinks like them.
No.
So that's the point I was making earlier, how all the CEOs are already older, so why would they pick a young person when they see someone who's like them? Mr. Gutierrez, who's raising a family, said his age, which is younger, it helps him relate better to his customers and employees, and he's comfortable discussing politically charged topics, social media, and TV shows. And again, I think his young age helps him connect with his target markets so that he can make his products the kind of the most based off of our needs and not the older generation's
Would
needs.
you think on the same side that if you have not only older directors, that you have more white male directors, and
Yeah,
that's why they hire more men CEOs that are white than women or other underrepresented minorities?
yeah. Age is a huge issue, but I think it really goes on to race and sex as well.
Do you think it's just subconscious that just what our experiences have been and we
It could
rely on
be.
our experiences as
Yeah,
opposed to a conscious decision? We're going to hire an old man?
yeah. I mean, what do you think of when you think of boss? An
No,
old white
older.
guy.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just what comes to mind, and I think it's just been ingrained in our brains, and
Hmm.
that maybe eventually we can change it, but we need to put forth a lot more effort to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think makes some of these younger men, what do they, I mean, we're looking at 500 companies. There's a lot of employees. How do you think they actually get to be the top person? If you assume that 500 companies have 5 million people, how do they rate? How do you think that, what do they do to get to that high level?
I think that some of them have amazing ideas.
Hmm.
Some of them have amazing connections.
Good point. No, no, very true.
Yeah, some of them definitely have the privileges out front,
Okay.
and if they don't, they have worked very, very hard to get where they are up the
Hmm.
ladder, and that's maybe why it takes so long and why they're so old.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that's probably where they came from.
Okay.
So the takeaway to this whole presentation, as a millennial myself, I feel that the younger CEOs are doing well to break the old white male stereotype for the positions of power. However, we need even more representation than just these few. Diversity is so important in business, and we need to take steps to empower those who are struggling and to encourage the dreamers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any closing thoughts? What are you taking away from this, besides what you just said?
I was going to say that was really my entire point of this presentation, to show
Okay.
you how cool and how hardworking these younger CEOs are. Not that the older ones aren't, but that we need to support our own generations as well, and kind of
Do you
just
think the those that may be younger are doing more in small firms that are more entrepreneurial and aren't as structured as an S&P 500 company must be?
yeah, I think that might have a something to do with it as well. Yep.
Okay. Good job. Good
Okay.
job. Let's
Thank you.